Our last session now. Before the closing plenary, we have the last discussion. So I can sense everybody is pretty energized after that networking, coffee, and the discussions that you've been having. And also I hope that the brains are also stimulated enough with the discussions that have been happening since the morning, off the stage and on the stage. We'll begin with our session. The session is titled Improving Agricultural Yield and Farmer Incomes. The chair and moderator for this session is Dr. V.M. Chowdary, Group Director, Agricultural Sciences and Applications Group, NRSC, ISRO. I would request sir to please join us on the stage. The speakers for this session are Ms. Devleena Bhattacharjee, Founder and CEO, Numerate Analytics Private Limited, Mr. Nipun Agarwal, Director, PwC India, Mr. Gagan Agarwal, Founder and Investor, SIA-Metrics, and Mr. Jatin Singh, Founder and MD, Skymet Weather Services Private Limited. Earth observation plays a significant role in improving agricultural efficiency for both traditional and marine agriculture. In India, where the sector employs 45% of the workforce and contributes 20% to GDP, optimizing practices is crucial. So this panel will explore ways to catalyze the agricultural sector using satellite data, considering the unique needs and potential of both traditional and marine agriculture to improve yield and farmer incomes. I would request Dr. V.M. Chowdary to please begin the session.
Yeah, good evening to all of you. Distinguished delegates and who of this space industry. I'm really excited, and actually I've seen some of the youngsters talking about the reusable satellite vehicles and the entrepreneurs. I'm really excited, and also been a good opportunity for me also to interact with many of you people over here. And my eminent panelists over here from different industry backgrounds, we are here. And then it's my honor and privilege to be here to chair and moderate the important session on agriculture, how to improve these agriculture yields and how to increase the farmer's income. I believe the agriculture is close to everybody's heart. So the moment we talk about ensuring this food security, ensuring the crop yields increase, it's like a multi-dimensional approach. So we'll need to address this issue on the multi-dimensional. We need to address several issues, like we'll have to talk in terms of land degradation issues, we'll have to address the biodiversity, we need to take care of forest, we need to take care of floods, droughts, how exactly you can mitigate, how you can forecast these droughts and floods, and the optimal crop using, how to plan for irrigation. So these are all, these several issues to be addressed together, but then only you will be able to possible, then you can think of increasing the crop yields or maybe in terms of increasing the farmer's benefit, how exactly these technologies can be of great help. Apart from these technologies, apart from these major issues that have been affecting the Indian agriculture, there are other issues like anthropogenic pressures, like ever-growing population, rapid industrialization, urbanization, and of course, the coming synergetic use of these technologies basically is sparkling this next industrial that what we call is agriculture 4.0. So, we are already underway to implement this agriculture 4.0. There is already, still we have not harnessed the full potential of this agriculture 4.0, but still there is a way that the talk is there, that agriculture 5.0 is already there, where people are talking about agriculture 5.0, where people have been, apart from, which was been working on the principles of industries, principles of 5.0 principles, where apart from the increasing this, when you're increasing the yields, when you're increasing that, you will have to, sustainability is the next call, that you will have to prevent the resource, you have to degradation of the resources. That is another major challenge that you have before us. So I just see so many startups are coming, so many space industries working in this direction, and several of my eminent panelists are also there working in this direction. So I'm sure that space industry will work towards Agri-5 to realize the full potential of these technologies. I'm sure that agri-industry is a long way. I mean, I'm sure that our efforts will realize for the improvement of the agriculture yields and the farmers, ultimately the farmers benefit. Finally, the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of doubling farmers' income. We should maybe strive towards that. Yes, eminent speakers to introduce themselves and their vision and their thoughts, and then what is their contribution in Indian agriculture sector. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So, hi everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm Devleena. I'm CEO founder of Numerate, and for the last 5.5 years, we have mostly been working in the coastal sector. And primarily, for the first 3 years, we have been working with the fisheries community, the marine fisheries, and in the last 1.5 years, we have moved on to the seaweed. But talking about coming to the context of this session, we started on a climate resilience perspective. We realized that the coastal economy, especially small-scale fisher folks, are at the brunt of climate change, and what we can do not only just using satellite data, but various interventions that can be done using technology to help them be climate resilient, help them increase their productivity, decrease their cost, and of course, provide additional income to farmers. So that's where my focus is, and we have gone about understanding the issues in hand. We work directly with the grassroots. My customers are fishermen and farmers. And over the years, we have developed a lot of intelligence from the communities to really understand how can your data be used, and not only data collected, but insights generated in various different multiple languages and various different formats that they understand. I mean, they are not a technically savvy audience, so we have to really present it in a way that they really understand, and that's primarily been a focus. And helping them in directly seeing the output in reducing their cost and improving their productivity. So yeah, so I'll pass on my for the other fellow panelists to introduce themselves. Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. I am Nipun Agarwal. I am a director at PwC India, specifically in the practice of aerospace, defense, and space sectors. We have been helping businesses, both private sector, public sector, as well as governments, in defining their growth, how they can look for growing their businesses within their core business areas or maybe diversifications, how they can optimize their operations, how they can become more efficient, how they can plan their business in future, how they can look at opportunities and viabilities of those. Specifically within space sector, we have been operating for last 5 years. We have been working with ISRO, Antrix, and very recently we have been engaged with InSpace to formulate a decadal vision and strategy for Indian industry ecosystem, how Indian industry can collaborate, can invest more and more, what are the opportunities present for them in various domains across value chains, and how those opportunities they can leverage and create meaningful businesses and create value for a larger society. And ultimately, how we can increase India's global footprint from currently about 2% market share globally to about 8 to 9% globally in next 10 years. So look forward to interacting with you and on this important topic, agriculture. If we see agriculture specifically in India, there are multiple issues. The issues like small land holdings, issues like low yields, very varied climate patterns. While you have floods in certain areas, you may have drought in certain other areas. And these are unpredictable. So farmers are facing multiple issues because of these varied climatic patterns. And on the other hand, their affordability to buy products which are being offered by maybe CI Metrics and Numerate and other people, is quite low. If there is affordability with some rich farmers, the willingness to pay is quite lower. The reason is unclear ROI. They would pay, but the returns on investments are not very clear to them. How those products will help them increase their yield. So the issues are lying mainly around awareness about these products. If products is something they are aware of, then availability of those products at grassroots level, and affordability as I touched upon. And in most cases, digital illiteracy or lack of network infrastructure, or maybe because most of them are using feature phones and not smartphones where most of these technologies are based, have applications on these smartphones. So how as an industry, how as an industry association we can help these farmers at grassroots level. So while I've highlighted the issues, I'll speak more about the possible solutions going forward.
Thank you, Nipun. Sir, Devleena. So I'm Gagan Agrawal. We run an outfit called CI Metrics. It's fairly new, about 2 years old. We come from ISRO. We've done a lot of consulting in space. And we've consistently realized one problem: when good entrepreneurs, good scientists come and want to build these solutions, they often run into technical bottlenecks. So for us, it was imperative to build some sort of an R&D lab where we can help them to solve these bottlenecks and take that ahead. To that extent, we've been solving problems, bespoke problems, unsolved problems from the industry, from the upstream data processing chains, L0 to L2, it's called raw data to analysis ready data. We apply a lot of bespoke machine learning algorithms, whether it be agri or infra or carbon estimation or other use cases. And in general, we sort of help the ecosystem out wherever we get these problems. Coming to agriculture, we received a slew of problem statements back in February this year. This came from the government, this came from the political parties, and this also came from insurance institutions. There were 2 or 3 major concerns why we dipped our hat into this. One, the data is biased. If you can't measure your yield in an unbiased manner, you can't plan for appropriate storage or appropriate premiums to give to the farmers. Second, El Nino is upon us. We are in a climate change environment where if you just see Delhi and Gurgaon, the rains have been fairly uncertain and airy. And they will likely persist for the next 2 years until El Nino passes, which means, and again, recently I saw in Economic Times, the report was the Kharif crop sowing has been 9% lower because of these impacts. So quantifying these impacts and letting either the government know or the farmers know, it's a little harder to let the farmers know because direct go-to market for farmers does not exist. We've seen some exceptional companies do it in West Bengal and a few other areas, but we don't really see across the board, and that's a problem to talk for. But we started this process, started collecting all of the data for the last 20 years. We saw pattern correlations. There are about 25 parameters that we look at, correlate, and build out a forecast model. And where we see going, if you can measure it well, you'll always have strategies either to tell the farmer, okay, you know what, maybe this crop is better for this kind of climatic conditions on the amount of rainfall that is going to come. Maybe this crop is better for this type of a soil condition, which we already see deteriorating. Perhaps a combination of several other factors. So this is where we are in our journey. We work with multiple insurance companies today who need better data. And at the end of the farmer, you have to understand today the rich farmer and the poor farmer pretty much pays the same premium, which I find a little worrisome. And typically, most of the sector even if there is a plus minus 10% change, you're talking about losing a lot of money. And in our era where, if you see the East Texas coast and Louisiana coast, because of hurricanes, persistent hurricanes, large swaths of land are becoming uninsurable. Now, we don't want that in agriculture. If climate affects certain parts of the land so much that it becomes uninsurable, we better predict it 2 years before than actually staring at the situation. That's from me. Thank you.
Thank you for excellent introductions. Yeah, so I have one question to Devleena. So basically, we've been constant focused more on terrestrial agriculture. Then you had chosen the different area of marine agriculture. So where do you foresee this? What is the business potential for this? Because India has got the long potential, long coastline. How do you see that potential for your marine agriculture? What
Okay.
are the different areas that you look for apart from this marine agriculture?
Right. So it's a difficult economy to start with. Let me just start with that. The reason we kind of started looking at the sea, it happened to us. We did not really pick ocean as a place to start. But back in 2019, we were working with coastal flood project on coastal flood with the European Space Agency, and we realized the demography that was facing the most impact on the climate change, be from the starting of the flood till the next 1 year, are the fishing communities, and that's where our journey started. And since then, we got a chance to work with the United Nations World Food Programme, and we evaluated that apart from India, across the world as a problem, and in 67 countries where small-scale fishermen are facing the constant threat of climate change. The problems are plenty. It's not only the fact that their operating costs have gone way up high, given the fact that 80% of the cost is fuel. And we are talking about marine fisheries, right? Boat owners, be it small scale, mid scale, and large scale. They also have, in general, the fisheries ecosystem is much more disintegrated than what you see in the farmer ecosystem. You can say, 20 years back, the Indian farming community, now we see agri-tech. But fisheries is much worse than that. It's highly, highly disintegrated. So that market linkages, both forward and backward market linkages. And finance and insurance, very niche. I mean, we have not been able to really dig into that, but that's a larger part, and that's of course the enabler for any kind of agri. And we are still kind of figuring our way out to that in the finance and insurance. A lot to be done there. So I'll come to the revenue bit, but that was our story for the last 3.5 years, and then we realized, given the fact that the community is facing so much of climatic threats, less fishing days, they were also looking for additional income. And a very, very fitting solution came from seaweed, where they are not having to move out to urban communities. They're not having to take out any other random job in the towns and urban spaces, but they could stay back in their own community and start working there. Fisher women can contribute to that. So in that case, we joined hands with a larger group called Climber Crew, who have been growing seaweed for almost 3 years, since 2017, and they were looking for a tech partner. So there are multiple ways of generating revenue, but look, talking of the population, there are 4 million fishermen or fisher folks in the marine sector. The moment you add the seaweed to it, it almost triples, so 12 million farmers and fishermen put together. 8,000 odd kilometers of coastal land, which is just the coast. Both coming to fisheries and seaweed, you go much beyond the coast, and so the area for really cultivating or marine agriculture is huge, and for us the market sizing is not just the supply side. I mean, what do I do with after I'm providing an advisory to a farmer, providing advice to a fisherman? What do I do with that? I help them sell the product. So my market is also who are buying those products. In the fisheries ecosystem is the fishing people who are buying fish, the fish buyers. But in the seaweed is a little bit more complex. In the sense, you don't get value of wet seaweed. We typically convert seaweed into processable, and process it into first value adds, which goes into farming industry, food industry, feed industry. So those are our market. So our market is a sustainable, agriculture. Our market are bioplastics. Markets are pharma, food and superfood, animal feed, and also biofuel when it comes to seaweed, though it is still in the process of making. And it's a $100 billion industry globally. In India, it is still developing, but we are slowly believing that we are being able to kind of help generate almost 20,000 extra income for a farmer when it comes to working with us on a monthly basis, and also kind of open up new sectors into the sustainable ecosystem.
Thank you for that. So actually, it's like a last mile connectivity between the technology and this poor fishermen that you're doing excellent. And of course, this ISRO also have been developed the technology for the potential fishing zones and then operationalized through inquiries. And then, of course, the technology it's an evidence that has been converted into a business model by Devleena. It's very good, I appreciate. And then coming to Mr. Nipun Agarwal, that you've been there in a very international, a very big consulting firm, that PwC. So where do you find that how these technologies, to create this awareness, what kind of technology induction in the agri sector? How do you foresee technology inductions? What kind of awareness that we need to create? What kind of efforts that we need to make?
So today, how the technology is helping in agriculture is we started with green revolution, where we started using pesticides, fertilizers, and increase the productivity. With the digital revolution, with the technology involved, we are converting those green revolution tenets into precision agriculture. So we are telling the farmers through technology that you should use fertilizers to the right quantity, in right mixture, right blend. You should use pesticides for the kind of pest which is threatening your crop. So with technology, and not just space technology, the technology is based on the data, collection of data, processing of data, and dissemination of data. Now data is coming from, of course, space. Data can also be collected through UAVs. Data can also be collected through on-site sensors. It can also be crowdsourced by pictures clicked by the farmers themselves. So all this data today, if you see, being processed in silos. So there are companies who are collecting space-based data, processing that data, creating beautiful products, of course, and trying to disseminate that data to the farmers. There are companies who are operating UAVs, processing that data captured by UAVs, processing that data, and again, giving to the farmers. What we foresee as a consulting firm, that all this data collection will converge, and there'll be platforms and solutions which will emerge, which will fuse these data sources into one feed, create analytics on this fused data, and hence a solution which is much better, where you have space-based images capturing, let's say, soil health and weather patterns in a large area. You have UAVs which can provide better resolution at a farm level, and then you have on-site sensors which can create imagery or sensing, data sensing at, let's say, pockets of the same farm. So this is how we see technology emerging in future and helping at a larger level in agriculture, not just terrestrial agriculture, even in marine agriculture. That is quite possible.
Thank you, Nipun. So, Mr. Gagan, you just a little ago, you just mentioning El Nino and the drought, and then you've been involved in the analysis of the long-term data. So, how do you think, and how, in your perspective, this long-term analysis of the data can be helpful for augmenting the farmers' income? Yeah, how can you?
First of all, I don't want to lose their current income. So that's the first filter.
Fine.
Let's tell them before a disaster happens what's going to happen. We will be soon moving to a model where every 15 days we'll be giving updates on looking at the weather patterns, looking at, again, similar correlations, applying ML to understand basis our Rabi forecast or Kharif forecast, what has changed in the crop. So that's my first aim. The biggest problem is, how do I disseminate this data to the farmer? I mean, the affluent farmers know most of it. The distressed farmers don't. They don't even have phones. They are in far-off villages. So some sort of a government scheme needs to be there, and it's amazing that, I mean, the Bima Yojana has come, and the bank's accounts have been rolled out, but how do you get this information to them? We can provide it every day, I mean, if needed, and definitely a 15-day update. So that's my problem. I mean, I don't see a solution right away to be implemented, and that's more a software problem and a connectivity problem that perhaps Mr. Nilikani should look at next. But from a farmer's income perspective, I can also say, do not sow this crop in the next season. And from an analytics, I can definitely say 20% yield increase or a corroborative price revenue increase can be obtained from this crop basis the price available in the market today. But do we have an ecosystem where they can go and get those different seeds? They can purchase the fertilizers. Can the bank roll it? I mean, finance it? I see the system broken, and it's quite biased. The affluent farmers get all of this, and they are currently earning in crores. The poor farmers are doing suicide. So I mean, those are the questions I would like to ask back.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you've been working towards the forecasting before Kharif forecast and then Rabi forecast. It's all quite interesting. And then, of course, I see there is some challenge, and of course, I'm sure that you can address these issues. And then I'll come back to Ms. Devleena. So I've been working on the marine agriculture. We're talking about the last mile connectivity. I mean, you addressed your business model you worked out. So how these technologies can be helpful for your, seafood ecosystem, how it can be helpful for sustainability and traceability compared to the traditional technologies, how your spatial technologies can help.
Do we let him introduce himself?
I'm sorry I got late. I got caught up in traffic. I was coming from Noida. My name is Jatin. I'm a founder of Skymet Weather Services. We're a weather and agri tech player, and we work in everything from disaster management, weather forecasting, rural finance, crop insurance, air pollution, and so forth. Thank you.
All right, so let's unpack both the words. So we're talking about farmer income and we're talking about agriculture yield. Breaking it down so that we kind of understand the various components, and then we can, understand where in those components technology can play a part. Not in all, in the first step. So if you really talk about increasing farmer income, how can you really increase farmer income? You can, Gagan spoke about advisories, very important given the changing climate, the current world. We are facing incredible amount of climate crisis. Advisories becomes very important. Farmer income means also they should have market linkages both backwards and forwards. They should have access to finance and insurance, and in the insurance space we're talking about crop insurance, climate insurance. Even in the finance space there's climate-based finance, there's climate tools to assessing the financial needs of a farmer of a certain space, a fisherman of a certain space. And it's different as we go much more deeper and deeper into the climate crisis that we are seeing all around us. When it comes to improving agriculture yield, the first input will be, the first thing that goes into that block will be giving them the right farm inputs. In our case, we work with, especially in the CBD ecosystem, we provide them farm inputs which help them attain a good production or a good quality of the crop. When it comes to fisheries, the farm inputs are typically in the form of the various fishing devices and the gadgets and the gizmos, and we typically work with small-scale fishermen. Improving farm agriculture yield also means having good access to market linkages, understanding crop weather patterns, so having those advisories in time. And so in those two blocks, where EO data can play a part is typically in the advisory space, which we do heavily, and that's our first foot into the ecosystem, giving them advisories and potential fishing zones, algae blooms, ocean currents, depth of the sea, sea terrain, and the various tidal and the wave action, weather information. In the seaweed side, analyzing salinity, analyzing SST, chlorophyll, analyzing various kinds of temperature fluctuations, wave patterns, all of these comes from EO data, and then deciphering the data and making them easily understandable by a farmer who has not had too much of technical education and in his own language is something that technology definitely plays a part. But also in the market linkages bit, right? Where the traceability is becoming a concern. Sustainability, you cannot have sustainability without traceability. So being able to understand where, when, and how the crop is coming from, and who is going to, and how really doing the entire supply chain monitoring to be able to understand what are the climate footprints and what are the kind of circular economy you can generate. There needs to be this constant feedback loop from the the source to the supply, and again creating the demand. That's where the traceability and sustainability makes takes place. And the other bit, which I was talking about it earlier, the insurance and the finance is especially crop insurance, climate insurance is some, at least in the coastal ecosystem, is very weak. We have seen that develop incredibly well in the agri-tech or the land-based agriculture, and in coastal we are still in the very, very niche area or the starting phase where we are still being able to build up data for underwriting it. So that's where understanding climatic patterns and forecasting, and then marrying that with the data, the demography data, with their own ecosystem connects and market linkage is something that we are looking forward to really building out those technological models as we go.
Thank you. So we have Jatin Singh here. I mean, a little bit, but still eminent. And then the Skymet. I mean, everybody knows that Skymet. No, apart from the IMD, there is one agency which gives the forecast of the weathers, and an Indian. So he's there with us, and then we can get more from him. So can you briefly, what is your vision, where Skymet, where it stands now, and then what is your forecast mechanism, how exactly, and what is your vision towards providing these hyper-local measurements towards betterment of the Indian agriculture?
Okay, let me try something. So when it comes to Indian agriculture, right, there are two important parts of narrative: data and contextual data. Context is location and time. And it could be, and when you look at that stack, there is weather, there is land information, there is crop type, classification, irrigation, soil. It keeps on, the layers keep on increasing. And the fact is that Indian agriculture is in crisis. 15% of GDP is supporting 65% of the population. About 75% of Indian farmers have less than a hectare. As a government, what does the government try to do? That we guarantee somehow a farmer 10,000 rupees a month through MSPs and all of that. Agriculture in its essence today is non-remunerative, and it is extremely political. Now that shows basically the challenge here is that there is only so much surplus you can eke out of agriculture, and at the end of the day, all of us end up running after government contracts because government effectively finances agriculture. And realistically, if going forward, I think what's going to happen is that where the opportunity is, where I think the role of government in agriculture is going to be paramount, and they're going to subcontract a lot of those activities to private companies like ours. There is where the opportunity actually is. Because the cost of our transaction is far lower than theirs, and also we develop many new technologies. Now I'll come to the context of Skymet. So in a sense, Skymet is a private sector weather forecasting company, but it essentially does government work. It provides a public service. It works in disaster management. It works in crop insurance for settlement of claims. And that is how we basically replicated everything in government. We probably did it cheaper, and our timelines were shorter. Same when it came to agriculture. Where does our agri-tech, actually scalable agri-tech, I'm not talking about individual farmer advisory, comes into play, is either farmer credit, which is KCC, in which we work with State Bank of India, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, all the banks, or we work in crop insurance where we work with all the crop insurers, or AIC, where we're using satellite technologies, earth observations, and all the things that was there. So there is an enterprise solution that is going to happen. And I think it's going to happen over the next 10, 15 years. I still don't feel that there's any premium that is going to come from the farmer individually. Then I come back to context. That is where I think the larger opportunity is. I'm not sure if it is monetizable, but the Indian farmer does not have contextual information. They do not have contextual weather information. They have no sense of the monsoon. They have no post-facto sense about where I am and where I should be. And there's a lot that can be done, and that field is absolutely open. And then when it comes to market linkages and all of that starts happening. Where I think when it comes to contextual information, communications is going to become very, very important. We're talking about a population that is semi-literate. So, one of the things that we're trying to build is AI in which there's limited amount of textual information. So let me see if I can demo this for you. Delhi mein barish kab hogi?
आज बहुत हल्की बारिश होगी। 15 दिनों के लिए मौसम पूर्वानुमान आप नीचे जांच कर सकते हैं।
This is the AI that I'm building. And this is our first product. We're going to launch it tomorrow. It is in 50 languages. It is absolutely free of cost. We have also built, though this is slightly, a muzzle detection technology that we can identify each and every animal separately. And those things. So I think in terms of Indian agriculture, what we need to do is wed earth observation to direct context, to the individual person, to the individual plot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jatin. In fact, ISRO is a primary user of your hyperlocal observations for Maharashtra state, where we are assimilating your data in our crop forecast models, and where we have been estimating it even halka level, or maybe very granularity is very high. So, I appreciate even the new this thing. Also, definitely will convert into good farmer advisory service. It can be a great boon for them. Let us hope.
We are working on a bot, AI enabled.
Yeah.
This is the first step.
Yeah.
Then we'll get into price. Yeah. Then we'll get into identification. But the key thing is get speech.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great initiative. I appreciate. Yeah. So coming back to Mr. Nipun, what is your vision on designing business model where you can involve the farmers, private, and then government sector towards generating these farmer-centric solutions? How you can build business model, and what is your vision on that?
So definitely, sir, an interesting question, and I would take clues from my fellow panelists. Gagan talked about the availability of solution to the end users, the farmers. Jatin mentioned a great technology he demonstrated, how you can use the local languages, the regional languages, and AI-enabled solutions where you just speak with the phone and phone responds back. But the challenges remain what kind of network infrastructure we have at the grassroots level. Do we have smartphones with each and every farmer who owns small land holding? Most of them carry feature phones. So does this technology work with such equipment? And does this technology work with infrastructure where you just have 2G connections, 3G connections today? So as PwC, we propose that we can work on testing various business models which can involve government. When I say government, it could be central government, state government, even the local bodies at block level, panchayat level. We can also work with the cooperative societies where farmers can join these societies, and certain aggregation can happen in terms of the demand, in terms of the training or the literacy which we can impart to the farmers for using such technologies. Even if you need to speak to the phone, you need to probably open an app and click on the right buttons so that you start speaking. So how a farmer today can start using such infrastructure, such technologies, That enablement needs to be done first of all, so that ability needs to come to the farmers. Secondly, the awareness. Gagan talked about that the rich farmers are quite aware, they're using such technologies, they're using such data available with them, and hence their income is rising. But that constitutes probably only 20-25% of the farmer population in the country. And more than 80% of the farmer today, they may not be, either they're aware or they're not aware, but they're not able to use such technologies today. So can the government aggregate such needs and demands, let's say at panchayat level? So for example, at panchayat level, at the panchayat office, can we keep, let's say a laptop or a desktop or a smartphone which can access such applications, and there could be a person or a group of persons who then become responsible to disseminate such information to all the stakeholders within the vicinity, to the beneficiaries within the vicinity. They can access such information through various technologies which may be available, and such aggregation will allow even the affordability, which is a big problem. Now Gagan talked about the availability. Now availability has to be greased through the money. You can make things available if you are getting enough money to make those things available. So it's very much like retail. If a consumer is aware about a biscuit, that this biscuit is existing because of the TV ads, but that biscuit, if it's not available in the mom and pop store in my neighborhood, the sale will not happen. So awareness along with availability is very important, which can happen only if money can be flown to the tech industry who is creating such products and solutions. Now, in order to sponsor or to create that cash flow, we need at least initially stakeholders to come in, for example, governments who can sponsor such solutions initially and then hand it over to maybe let's say panchayat level or cooperative society level. And we can also test the models like B2, B2C, where companies like CI Metrics or Numerate or Skymet can sell their solutions to companies who are into agri-processing, who are into agri-tech, or maybe, let's say, insurance sector. Today, my health insurance company nudges me that you run, put a wearable on your hand, it measures how many kilometers I have run. At the end of the year, they take a log and they will offer me a premium discount. So they are nudging me to be fit so that their claims go down. They're also offering me an annual health checkup. Again, if I do the health checkup by taking their offer, I might diagnose some diseases earlier, and hence I may take preventive steps, and hence I'll not get into hospital, and hence their claims will come down. Can insurance company create such bundling? If crop insurance is being bought by a farmer, can a company say, okay, if you're buying crop insurance, you will also get an application in a smartphone app or maybe a service through USSD, SMS or IVRS where information can be disseminated. So such insurance company takes information from, let's say, XYZ company, CI Metrics or Numerate, and disseminates such information to the farmers who have bought insurance from them. So there could be various models, as I said. Other model could be B2, G2C, where the companies are selling to government, and government is then become a channel for disseminating such information through various, of course, various bodies, including, let's say, Panchayat, Anganwadi, and self-help groups. And I talked about the ability of farmers. So training of farmers is also very important, how to use such technologies. Now, Jatin mentioned that they are lost. They don't have today a sense what will happen in my context. What has happened in my context, and how do I relate that to, let's say, my next season of the crop? Can that sense be disseminated using government bodies initially? Train the farmers, and once the farmers are able enough, they are able to understand the technology, they are able to use the technology, they are able to leverage the technology, then farmers are on board, and the technology can become self-sustainable, then the government bodies can step back. This is a long-term sustenance model you need to create. Government cannot be there as an intermediary forever. So they have to initiate, they have to create a ball rolling and then step back once the people are habitual and are comfortable with such technologies. Now talking about some numbers, talking about some best practices. Now globally, if we see, there are certain programs who have created socio-economic impact, specifically talking about economic impact. Up to 30% of impact has been created. Up to 30% of productivity has increased in certain regions. And this shows a precedence that technology, if properly used, properly made available, properly being disseminated, can create real impact. And such impact, I would say, can also be brought in such large countries. And there are case studies. For example, we see some case studies in South Africa. We have seen some case studies in South America where SMS-based information dissemination is happening. So if technological products are created with the end users, understanding their needs, understanding their challenges, and bringing all the stakeholders on board so that proper money can also flow, which can incentivize the entire industry to create the solutions, I think things can happen.
Thank you, Mr. Nipun. Yeah, I mean, I foresee one, instead of hand contact individual farmers, maybe group of farmers like FPOs may be the better option. One is when you're dealing with the farmers, basically. Convincing each and every farmer will be the great difficulty. So that is one option.
Sure, sir. That's why I said aggregation. Making a
aggregation.
group of farmers, making them trained in a group.
Yeah. So, Mr. Gagan, so one last question to you. What are the bottlenecks you foresee that when you're implementing a lot of digital technologies that are coming, what are the bottlenecks that you foresee to fully harness the full potential of these technologies for improving this Indian agriculture, maybe the digital agriculture?
Okay. So as Jatin touched upon, the parcel sizes are really small as compared to, say, US or Australia. It's very easy to predict yield to 99% accuracy in those countries, as well as do precision farming. Not really possible in India, and we're looking at state-of-the-art 93, 94% accurate yield prediction solutions. That can certainly improve. We can look at optical plus hyperspectral fused data sets. We don't have good resolution hyperspectral data yet anywhere. So I think that is somewhere on the upstream side satellite industry can work on. We are seeing some use cases coming on very low Earth orbit constellations, very high optical resolutions coming in. That is one way to solve this problem. As we go forward, the segmentation algorithms themselves are becoming so much more powerful that within that 1 hectare itself, we are now able to classify multiple crops based on those algorithms. It's hard. We have to train a lot. We have to take a lot of ground truthing into account, but it's starting to become doable. I would also like to actually see SATCOM play a more important role. And if dissemination is such a big problem, and we already see community Wi-Fi or village Wi-Fi becoming a possibility in many regions, especially say, we've seen Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela implement that a lot. Why can't we do that in India? Every village has a small dish, $200 upfront capex. We don't even need 1 Mbps, right? We just need 10 kbps, put a loudspeaker and say to that area, hey, rains are coming. We could use SATCOM as well.
Yeah, hopefully that we can address these bottlenecks, and you are the startups that will have to address these issues. Yeah, so one last question to Jatin. So since our session is getting end, Mr. Jatin, you're doing great service. One app that you're going to introduce tomorrow. How this, apart from this forecasting of weather, how these farmers can benefit, how you can convert the agro advisory services on real time? Maybe in terms of the crop monitoring, maybe in terms of pests and disease attack. So that these are the major in-season during the in-season that affects more on crop yield. If you can add anything for betterment of this period, definitely farmers will have the better yield kind of thing. So what is your thoughts
So
on how
there
your
are
efforts
dime a
go?
dozen agri-advisory apps in this market today.
Okay.
But everybody's looking for agri-advisory. So obviously there is something wrong. I mean, there is KVK and people have teams, Maharashtra for their pomegranate and grapes is very developed, Jalgaon for bananas is very developed. But if you go and talk to farmers, talk to government especially, agri-advisory, and I've heard this story for 20 years. This is where I come back to context. Now finally, we have image recognition and interpretation, and we have voice, and we have, runtime stuff that you can do. Make it voice-enabled chat. Just, weather is my first step. Okay. So what is the price? दाम क्या होगा? किस मंडी का दाम मिलेगा? अब मैं नाइट्रोजन डालूं कि नहीं डालूं? कब बेचूं? I think it has to go to that level of automation.
Yes.
Because the problem is, everybody here, including me, none of us are farmers. In every technology section I go to, in every government meeting I go to, there are no farmers. You get a bunch of farmers into the room, you will have to leave. We are not talking the same language. And the fact is that their expectations, what is the conversation you have with a bunch of farmers? MSP, crop claims, loan amount, and forgiving of crop loan. That conversation doesn't go anywhere. So the idea is that we give them first contextualized information absolutely free of cost, which is so good that they don't need to go, they don't need to search, and it comes to them. There are dime a dozen YouTube farmer channels. I really would like somebody to audit it and figure out what is the exact impact of it, because it should have. There are millions of people. Our weather channel, our channel has about 1.5 million subscribers, most of them farmers, but there are others also. The day that context, because when it comes to crop advisories, farmer generally knows what to do. The problem is if you recommend an agri input and it doesn't work, who's responsible for it? So I guess the idea is to automate and see where it goes from there, because it's a much tougher problem. I mean, I've spent a lot of time dealing with this. A lot of younger people come into this, so was I. But actually the amount of surplus is so low, that to innovate around it becomes very, very tough.
Great. Yeah, and one last question to Devleena. Yeah, this is you're talking about the marine agriculture. I mean, people often, you find seaweed, it has got a great potential for at least in the coast of Japan and China. What is the business potential that India has, and then what is the export potential that we have? Yeah.
Okay, I think last year the global production was around 35 million tons of seaweed. In India we did 36,000. We are doing 0.02% of global production. And we have 8,000 square kilometers of coastal land and almost 100 million square kilometers of EEZ. So the potential is large, and we are definitely we're doing something wrong. Not that we started late. If people are here from Tamil Nadu, you will know that there are established seaweed farmers in Tamil Nadu who have been doing it in the traditional way. What we are doing differently, and I would like to break that down in saying that we are not looking to be one more other cultivator. We are not looking to be one more other processor. We are looking to develop best practices, because it is such a niche space that nobody knows how to grow seaweed in a way that you can really predict the productivity, you can really control the quality. And that's where I have a bunch of people from the GIS space, from the marine agriculture, from your marine biologists, your marine infrastructure developers, engineers, to processors, to our chemists, botanists, who are able to really assess the quality and the quantity and the various processing that comes along with it, in understanding, in building what different types of applications that goes into pharma applications, feed application, food applications, fertilizers, and fuel. So the potential for seaweed in India is large. The government has set up at 11 lakh tons for the next 3 years, but I think we can grow thrice of that. We are only doing it in Tamil Nadu. So far we have done mostly in Tamil Nadu, the cultivation part of it, But as a group, we are we have started with Maharashtra and Gujarat. And within just the two states, we have been able to identify using satellite data 100 plus hectares of potential seaweed cultivation. We have activated 11 farms ourselves. We have produced and harvested close to 100 tons of seaweed this year, and we have produced various value-added products and then sold them. So all these best practices that we are developing, be it advisories, market linkages, and supply chain best practices, we are looking to provide that through a marketplace that we are calling Climacrew to various seaweed cultivators across India, various traders of the commodity, and various processors. So we believe that this ecosystem, be it aggregation or integration, will help to grow the industry as a whole, and where we can help them to really have the right tools, have the right technology, have the right advisory, have the right training, and then kind of the supply feeding the demand and going through the the entire growing the market as we go along. Just one point to what Jatin was saying, I believe, and I have faced that myself. So there are a bunch of farm advisories. Though I work on the coastal side, agri-industry has a bunch of applications, apps that farmers are meant to use. Most of them don't get used over time because what we realized that training is such a crucial thing when it comes to working with farmers, and we had to do it ourselves because nobody is doing training for fishermen. And that's not one time you go and give them an app. There's digital literacy, there's financial literacy, and you have to do that over and over again. And as a startup, if I have to really engage in that, it makes my life very, very difficult. And so that's where I believe a government can really play a part, where they take up training, give them, integrate with be it be starters, be it be, any other private party, help us in training this, and providing this last mile linkages, where we as tech companies can help them kind of leverage that and then help them in improving their yield, increasing or doubling their income, so on and so forth.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think our session is closed. Before closing, I just invite a few questions, one or two questions, big questions from audience. Yeah, please.
Thank you. My name is Singh. I'm a farmer from Punjab, and I also come from the technology background. My question is, can you throw some light on the kind of IoT devices which contain the sensors to measure the different parameters in a farm, which are already deployed in the fields in India?
So let me just give you there are a bunch of companies doing this. The number one network, of course, is the Government of India network, which is the IMD network of weather sensors. We have a network of about 6,500 stations across the country. We are mostly concentrated in Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and MP. Then there are companies like Philo that do on-farm sensing and forecasting. And there's another very good company, I'm forgetting the name, Fasal, that also does the same, in which it have integrated their weather forecasting sensing systems with irrigation equipment. There's another company that does very good on-farm analytics in terms of sensors, and they actually have an agronomic intervention in the sense that they give you agri-advisory, they put a sensor on your farm, and they also compensate for the loss if you follow their agri-advisory. Plus, they give you agri input. It's called WRMS, Weather Risk Management Services Limited. So, a decent amount of innovation on this. There's also a company called Krishi Tantra that does soil-based sensing and then agri-advisories based on soil sensing. The ecosystem is quite rich now.
So one more, please.
Thank you. My name is Pushkar. I'm a geospatial data science researcher. I have a question for Devleena. Given that we have such a large coastline, why is it that we don't have large-scale offshore fish farms? Is it a technology problem, a funding problem, a legal problem? What is it?
You mentioned fish farms, right? Correct. So all the problems that you mentioned, all of them, and more. See, the coastal ecosystem is 10 years behind when it comes to adopting technology. The fact that, but the surprising thing that we realize that they are not, we call them not so tech savvy, but at their end they are incredibly early technological adopters. So if you go to them and tell them that to use the app, they use it and they try it out more than what you see in a farming economy. But coming to a question, they are currently using, be it be fisheries, be it be seaweed, be it be your brackish water fishing, everything around the coast, they are using very, very traditional means of cultivation, means of fishing, which do not really promise them a certain production quality, certain production quantity. And given the aspect of climate change, that is being threatened as we go with every year, it's kind of bringing the production down, bringing the number of days of cultivation down, bringing the number of days of being active on the farms down. So that's one basic reason. And that's where we come in and we are trying to, kind of industrialize the process where we are having climate resilient fisheries, climate resilient seaweed farms. And that's a whole other topic where you not only engage in satellite data advisories, but also actually build those farm infrastructures that will be suitable to a rough climatic conditions, oceanic conditions, so on and so forth. Legally, the entire ocean space is very complex. There are multiple jurisdictions, multiple parties to get permission for. Even in our own end, where we do have a voice to really talk to various stakeholders, various government units, we get confused on whom to approach. There are salt pans, there are aquaculture ponds, there are vast marine spaces, and it is coastal police, coast guards, fisheries department, your various sport departments. So it's very, very complex. So that needs breaking down. That needs much more easier approach and one single window. The other bit is about funding. There is PMMSY, right? Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. For I think this is the 5th year, and very little has been utilized in really developing the coastal ecosystem, because if you really go to the fisheries department, any state fisheries department, right, and you ask them that you have a certain pool of money that we can use for either working with the seaweed farmers or working with the fishing communities, the person sitting at those state departments don't understand it. So we're talking about, even if I go and give them a proposal, they need some kind of basic knowledge to understand this proposal turns, will be able to contribute to so much of, income generation, or how to really, pass that on. So it needs train the trainers, it needs, top-down entire system and reorganizing, or even basic starting in the grassroots. So it's a combination of all three, to be honest. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We can close the session because the time is already running. Yeah, thank you.
We have one more question.
Yeah, one more question. Yeah, please. Last question.
Yes, thank you, sir. My name is Nadi. I just wanted to ask something to Mr. Jatin. You did mention that putting scientists and farmers, or let's say government employees. I was recently involved in a study with MRSEC and NSRC, where 45% of Sarpanch from Maharashtra and 45% of GIS scientists were together, and 10% academia were there. And it was very difficult to make them understand what is the importance of GIS. So in this context, I wanted to ask you, if you bought the one which you're launching tomorrow, would that be available in regional languages, like locally for all of the regions of, not just Maharashtra, but India as well?
Yeah, I think more than 35 languages.
Okay.
It's an attempt. We've worked very hard. Maybe there'll be issues with grammar and all, but the attempt is it's available in multiple languages. It's absolutely free of cost. The idea is that, simplify the technology. Weather forecasting and climate services are very complex technologies. The idea is to provide maximum intellectual output by minimal input of it. I should not be able to read. I need not to have any powers of interpretation. That's where I want to take this. And until agriculture, especially comes to crop advisory, goes to that point, okay, we will be nowhere near it. The problem is that, you know, there are engineers and scientists building a solution, and I'm responsible. I'm not, but the farmer ecosystem, the one that a farmer lives in, is very, very difficult, and it's very, very different. One of the things that you will realize in rural India is absolute opacity in information. Figuring out what is the truth is very, very hard. What do you grow? How much land do you have? What does your father do? What happened to your last crop? How much do you own? How much do you owe to the bank? What did you do with the money you got from the bank? You know, how do you use it? I mean, are you stealing power? God knows. See, that's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. And the fact is that until it gets contextualized, I'm talking about a lot of things at the same time, we'll never get to the point where we want to go. And I will finish this by saying this. Agriculture in India is very, very political. This is a constituency that can make the government do anything it wants it to do. So efficiency is a loaded word here. Thank you. Yeah.
Mention that because at the end of the study, what we understood is none of them understood the language that the other was speaking. At the end, that did not turn out very fruitful, and everybody wanted just have one group of sarpanches. Their conclusion should be there, and one group of scientists, their conclusion would be there. So that was very difficult. That's why I was very impressed with your board. So thank you so much.
See, immersion, our cost of living, none of us, I mean, with all due respect, none of our children, we are not inspiring them to become farmers for a good reason. It's tough. You're poor for a long period of time. The reason I can talk about it, because this was my bread and butter, and I immersed myself in 20 years, not because I wanted to, because this is all I could do. And then I figured things out. The problem is that India has, vast income disparity. And the moment you turn into middle class, you are not immersing yourself. And it's true for all of us. So that's where I think the disconnect happens.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chowdary, for moderating the session, and thank you to all our speakers for that elaborate discussion on agriculture, yield, and farmer incomes. If there are any more doubts or questions that you have, maybe you can take it offline. I would request our speakers to please step forward for a group picture. Can we please have a round of applause for all our speakers? Thank you. Yes, thank you. With that, we have reached our final session, the closing plenary, for which we have a keynote address on mini geo-communication satellite by Mr. Shmuel Ackler, Director Communication Satellites, MBT Space Division, Israel Aerospace Industries Limited. Is this yours?
Yes, yes. This is my list. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present here. My name is Shmuel Ackler. I'm the Director for Communication Satellites at IA Space Division. And my topic is a new era for communication satellites. Actually, I would like to speak about small, smart geo-communication satellites. With your permission, I would like to start with a short view about IAI, Israel Aerospace Industries. Israel Aerospace Industries, we are talking about over 7 billion annual sales and almost 80% for export. We are the largest aerospace industry in Israel, 15,000 employees, and we are 1 in 10 airplane manufacturer all over the world. We also worldwide leader of radar systems, and we deliver and design and develop end-to-end solution for space systems. These are our achievements over the past 40 years. As I mentioned before, we design, develop, and deliver all kinds, all variety of satellites. We are talking about communication satellites that I will elaborate later, observation satellites, radar and electro-optical satellites, lunar landers, scientific satellite, and small satellites, mainly for constellations. We can see here all the launches, the very successful launches. And also, we have ability with our Shavit launcher to launch our observation satellite. And we also designed and built ground control centers to operate and maintenance our satellites. Now I will start with my topic, smart and small geocommunication satellites. And I would like to start with a short video clip about this. Thank you. So we can see in this coordinate scale all the solutions for satellite communication. So if the customer wants to use satellite communication, there are few solutions to do it. One of them is HTS, high throughput satellites, very huge and big satellites. Barrier to entry is very high because it's very expensive satellite, but the cost per bit is relatively low. In other end, we have the solution to lease, only to lease use of LEO constellations like Starlink or other constellations, Iridium, etc. And the cost per bit is relatively high, but barrier to entry is relatively low because you don't need to buy your own constellation, you need only to lease capacity from the constellation. In the middle, we have the legacy communication satellites, but we think that the more efficient, more beneficial solution is the mini communication satellites because the barrier to entry, the entrance fee, is relatively low, and also the cost per bit is relatively low. Mostly, while we start to design a new communication satellites, we need to forecast 20 years ahead because we are talking about several years of design and developed satellites, and at least 15 years of the mission life. So we need to forecast the requirements, the capacity for 20 years ahead. But the problem is that we need to pay now for the expected capacity. We pay for the gap, for the future gap. But in our solution, the mini communication satellite, we can start with the current capacity, the current requirement, and later on we can launch a new satellite with new technology, and in this way we close the gap only why we need it. So we pay as we grow. Another benefit for this concept is redundancy. You know that there is between 1 to 3 geocommunication satellites malfunction per year all over the world. And it's more beneficial to use few small satellites instead of one big satellite. We don't put all the eggs in one basket. And in this way, we increase dramatically the redundancy. So when you can buy your own small satellites, it gives to most of the nations the ability to have their own satellite. So what are the advantages to have your national satellites? First, independency. When you use commercial satellites, you buy capacity from operator, you rely on this operator. So if you want to stop the service because of political issue or commercial issue, you can do it. It's not your own satellite. Another issue is secrecy. If you want to change the coverage of the antenna by steering the antenna, you don't want to share this information with the operator. Another issue, of course, technological background. If it is your own satellite, you have all technology, all the knowledge for this satellite, for these communication satellites. And of course, you can implement cyber protection, your assets for this cyber protection. And of course, we have fully flexibility. We will see later on that we rely on digital payload, fully digital payload. It's one big router. So you have all flexibility in terms of the capacity. You can change the bandwidth, the capacity of each channel. You can change the frequency. You can change all the frequency band of each channel. You can change also the gain of each channel. And at least, so you can do everything on this satellite because it's one big router. You are fully flexible in terms of the coverage, capacity, and gain. And political leverage, due to the fact that it's your own satellite, you can exchange knowledge and capacity and technology with other nations, with other operators. Now we see our solution. The solution of AI for these smart and small geocommunication satellites, the name is MCS, mini communication satellites. Mini, it means about 800 kilograms, more or less. We are talking about multi-band satellite. We can implement any kind of frequency band on board the satellites. C, S, L, X band, KU, KA, V, and Q. All kind of frequency band we can do, as well UHF, of course. And we are talking about more or less 10 gigabit per second. We are talking up to 4 antennas. I will elaborate later about the configuration of these antennas. And we are talking about payload of 200 kilograms and 2 kilowatt. Of course, cyber protection. We are talking at least 15 years of mission life. Fully digital payload. I will give example later. And all-electric propulsion. All-electric propulsion gives us the ability to change the orbital slot after the launch due to your needs. If you want to change the orbital slot, you can do it with this electric propulsion because you use very, very small amount of fuel. We are talking about xenon, for example. And high quality. This small satellite is the same like the big one in terms of performance and quality. The only change is in terms of the capacity. We give the same quality, the same mission life, the same performance like in the big satellites, but in small capacity. What are the attributes of this payload? First, we can implement onboard the satellite not only one frequency band, we can implement dual band. We are talking about all digital, software-defined radio, real SDR. It's real smartphone. We can upload applications also after the launch. Not only before we launch the satellites, we implement channelizer, we can put any application after the launch. And this is the reason, because we are using FPGA components. And for example, we can implement onboard the satellite regenerative payload to enhance the performance. We can implement any modem. It's good for cyber, for example. We can implement onboard spectrum monitor, not only in the ground station. We can put spectrum monitoring onboard the satellites because we are using software. And variety of application. For example, we can implement VSAT system on board the satellites, and we don't need the ground station to do it. In orbit flexible RF band, we can change the central frequency band of each channel on board the satellites. It's not only fixed frequency, we can change after the launch. So it gives you another benefit that you don't need to do all the regulation of the frequency band before the launch. You can do it also during the development of the satellites and also after the launch. If you want to change the orbital slot, it's very easy because you can change the frequency band during the regulation of this slot. And we are talking about 8 HPAs, transponders in architecture, in digital architecture, or 12 in analog architecture, and we have flexible antenna for configuration. We can see in the slide, we can put 2 big antennas, 1 big or 2 small, or 4 small antenna. By the way, all of those antennas are steerable. We can change the theater during the needs. And of course, the art of the satellites is the multi-mission processor, like one big router. And as I mentioned before, we can build and deliver and operate the satellite ground station for all variety of satellites. And by the way, we have also software system that enhance the data loaded mainly from our observation satellites. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rackler, for the keynote address on mini satellites. So we started our morning with an overview of the space industry. We started with Gagan Yatra to the cosmos, and we explored the different aspects of the space industry, from policy to quantum communication to satellites to agriculture yields and a lot of different topics. And we are only getting started. The next 2 days, we have so much more to uncover about the space industry. I would request Anil Prakash sir, Director General SIA-INDIA, to please come and deliver the valedictory note.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's not a valedictory. I'm just going to touch upon the salient point discussion happened during the day. And it is a very, very satisfying day. And thank you for your patience as you're still in the room. So the inauguration was done fantastically. And then our president, Dr. Subbarao Pavuluri, set the ball rolling this morning. And he emphasized the collaboration and innovation in the space industry. He stressed more on that. And in industry participation has got its own meaning in the space sector specifically, which is on the nascent stage. I think building block is that while the government is providing policy framework and all, and I think with the industry collaboration and that SIA-INDIA is playing a pivotal role. Thank you, Dr. Subbarao, for your welcome address this morning. And then we have the chief guest this morning, His Excellency Shri Bandaru Bhattacharjee, his highlighted role of space technology in driving innovation, social economic growth for Haryana. And he'd given examples of how agriculture is using satellite and how the water resource is being used. So they are using it, and also he highlighted the Haryana Space Application Center, which is there, and it's doing a great work for the state. So with that note, we have also Dr. Somnath, who was our special guest of honor, and all today's press is already flooded with his statement that he announced this from this platform that SSLV is going to be for the private sector, and it will transfer technology, will transfer to the private sector. It's made a news, and it's gathered by all leading newspapers this afternoon. And he did talk about elaborately with the news people about what was the factor of failure of the Chandrayaan-2 and what measures and they have done to safeguard those failures, and they wanted to make it foolproof. Of course, nothing is predictable, but he said we have taken enough safeguard to make Chandrayaan-3 rover landing smoothly at the moon surface. And challenge is that they are going to be doing South Pole, which is much more difficult terrain. So then we have a satellite broadband is crucial for bridging the connectivity gap, and achieving is driven by Gunjan Dave, the member technology. She set about a number of policy framework which liberalization in the Department of Telecom is taken in terms of the leasing out the number of charges which is levied, and some of the charges have been drastically reduced and some have been already removed. So I think this is a welcome step for the industry. Then we have our knowledge partner, Nathan Moderator, MD Bureau Consult. He talked about the President inside the top drivers and speed breakers of the space economy. And then we have, just now we heard a closing keynote by Mr. Shimul Ekler discuss mini geo communication satellite and that future's advantages. We have just witnessed that. And we also have heard this morning Mr. McDonald, who was the chief economist of NASA, and he stressed upon while the government-to-government collaboration is going, the key is that the space industry in US and space industry in India, they work together. I think the next role is, and where I also had an offline meeting with him, this thing, and he also stressed about that there is a great role this association can do with a like-minded association in US. I think it's just a beginning of a good relationship or better relationship with the US. Not only government to government level, but also the industry level. So then we have a couple of take from the various session which held today, and we have Ms. Dr. V.M. Chowdary emphasized the multi-dimensional approach to address farmer income and agricultural yield, which was just happened before this session. Then we have Vivek Kimbone, who is from Sankhya Lab, and he talked about broadcast standards and 5G trials in India. Professor Purvi Pokhriyal discussed the use of IoT sensor in Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and fusion between based solution. Mr. Raghav Handa for SSVC and Mr. Nitish Singh discussed startup journey and space policy in India. Mr. Partha Ghosh highlighted the importance of smart solution and access to highlight high quality satellite data, region rate responses. So these are some of the topic. Of course, we do have also have taken a note of the various deliberation, and we will be compiling the day one report, and also all 3 days reports will be compiled into a conference report and with the declaration. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your great patience, and you have a safe travel back, or those who are staying here, a good stay. And also we request you to please join back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, because again there is going to be another day going to be start with the grand finale, grand opening, where we are expecting His Excellency Governor of Uttarakhand as a chief guest, and we have We have Dr. V.K. Saraswat, who's a member, honorable member of NITI Aayog, going to be here. God, then we have industry players also there. And Dr. Subbarao is also going to open with us tomorrow morning. That's good night, good evening to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil sir. So that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of the first day of the second edition of the India Space Congress. I hope we are all going back with a lot of food for thought from all the on-stage discussions and more so from the off-stage conversations that we've all had. I hope you had a good day, a fruitful day, and we hope to see you tomorrow for the second day of the India Space Congress. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.